Welcome to WLCR 91.1, Lake Country Radio, serving the greater communities of Heartland, Delafield, Pewaukee, Neshota, Chinekwa, Merton, Okauchee, Monches, North Lake, Genesee Depot, Mukwonago. And fine. Oconomowoc as well, but somebody had better be fucking dead, mate, if you want me to set foot in that unpronounceable asshole of a city. Then, of course, my personal favourite, the fair town of Wales. Ryan ni ima ohid, Ryan ni ima ohid, Agweda Palbafopith, Ryan ni ima ohid, Ayaboyo. You know who I am, kidda. My mandem Guan be top boy, Riddle roadman, yeah? True rock and rollers, so you hear me, son? Say love. How's I toss you a tenner, yeah? You mosey on round the quick trip, off of the high street and get me my macaroons and some White Claw, yeah? No, lassie. I don't rightly care what flavour, do I? Anything but fucking grape again. I absolutely bloody well cannot stand for artificial grape anything. Cunts. Hey, yap. While you're down there, love. Ho, 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 ha, ha. There you go, lass. A proper seltzer drunk by noon would do me nicely. Now shag ass over there and bring me change. Because remember, everything is emergency. Urgency over accuracy. Free, dumb, freedom. So tune your dials all the way left because, as you already know, 911 is greater than 411. 911, 411. Do the math. We are 500 more, aren't we? Once again, this is Lake Country Radio, but I is Michael Caine. And from yesterday's news, we're proud to bring you up to speed with today in the 1800s. Done. June 21st, 1869, Farmer Enoch, Weiss's plough ox, ate a bushel of horseradish and ran amok through Mrs. Harmling's K-12 class in the Little Red Schoolhouse on North Shore Drive in Pewaukee, whose basement was part of the Underground Railroad. The errant beast of burden was eventually musketed by 3 Lutheran deacons and a travelling phrenologist. Willow bark salve was applied to hoof strikes. June the 22nd, 1872, 14 deaths attributed to werewolf in Hubertus, town barb wired establishing its present-day limits. June 23rd, 1880, an estimated 22,000 gathered at Basilica and National Shrine of Mary Help of Christians on the grounds of Holy Hill to watch Rogers Bainbridge, pioneering aviator and atheist, test his patented angel feathers wing apparatus from atop the northerly of the 192-foot twin spires. Witnesses described the flight as brief but memorable. June 24th, 1882. 4 Fachwerkbeweisers were defenestrated when a steam saw exploded atop the construction of the fire tower at Lapham Peak in the Kettle Moraine. One man, Heinrich Vogelbaum, died upon impact, while the other 3 later perished from fermented rutabaga tonic while recovering at a nearby boarding house. June 25th, 1889. A block was destroyed after Constance Waverley, Ersatz quilter, caught fire and ran from her shop on Church Street, the current site of Amy Abel Massage, where village blacksmiths were attempting to cap a ruptured gas main being installed at the Presnell Manor, owned by local sorghum magnate and land acquisitionist Exley Presnell, June 26, 1891. 113 workers and 78 hired goons, for a total of 191 men, were beaten to death by axe handle in a dispute concerning the 22-hour workday outside a foundry near the Merton Mill Pond. June 27, 1898, Josephus Brandt Flugelkriller, preceded in death by his father Leland, a yegg who exploded pouring nitroglycerin into a bank safe, contracted black humours after an iron fire escape swung free from his 4th-floor walk-up and punctured his bowels. The pharmacist near the old Amaco station applied tinctures and heated bricks to the gash, but Josephus died screaming over a fortnight. May God have mercy on us all. This has been the 1800s. I has been Michael Caine for WLCR 91.1 Lake Country Radio.
Enoch Weiss's plow ox ate a bushel of horseradish in 1869 and promptly dismantled a schoolhouse that doubled as a stop on the Underground Railroad. It sounds like a fever dream or a lost chapter of Wisconsin folklore, but this series of bizarre events from the late 19th century Lake Country region points to a much deeper, more chaotic reality of frontier life. We're looking at a collection of local history snippets that range from werewolf sightings in Hubertus to lethal labor disputes in Merton. This isn't just about eccentric anecdotes, it's about how a rapidly industrializing society processed trauma, superstition, and technological failure.
That ox incident in Pewaukee is particularly striking because it intersects with such a heavy historical weight. You have this mundane agricultural mishap, an animal getting into a pungent crop, turning into a destructive rampage through the Little Red Schoolhouse on North Shore Drive. But that schoolhouse wasn't just a place for K-12 education. Its basement was a sanctuary for people escaping slavery. When that beast was eventually put down by 3 Lutheran deacons and a traveling phrenologist, it highlights the weird collision of the sacred, the scientific, and the survivalist nature of 1860s Wisconsin. Phrenology, the study of skull shapes, was seen as cutting-edge science at the time, yet here's a practitioner helping local religious leaders deal with a literal beast of burden gone mad.
The involvement of a phrenologist is such a specific detail. It makes me wonder about the social stratification of these small towns. You have the Lutheran deacons representing the moral and social backbone, and then this traveling phrenologist who represents the intellectual curiosity of the era, even if we now know it's a pseudoscience. But if we shift forward just a few years to 1872, the tone shifts from chaotic comedy to genuine horror. 14 deaths in Hubertus attributed to a werewolf. The town's reaction was to string up barbed wire to establish its limits. It seems like a massive overreaction for a period when people were quite familiar with actual wolves.
It's a fascinating look at how a community defines its borders under pressure. Hubertus is near Holy Hill, an area with deep religious and spiritual significance. In the 1870s, the line between folklore and frontier reality was incredibly thin. 14 deaths is a catastrophic number for a small settlement. While a modern perspective might suggest a rabid animal or even a human predator, the local psyche reached for the supernatural. 14 deaths is a catastrophic number for a small settlement. While a modern perspective might suggest a rabid animal or even a human predator, the local psyche reached for the supernatural. Using barbed wire, a relatively new invention at the time, patented by Joseph Glidden in 1874, though in development earlier, to literally fence out the unnatural shows a community trying to use modern industrial tools to solve a medieval-style fear.
That intersection of the modern and the ancient is everywhere here. Take 1880 at Holy Hill. You have Rogers Bainbridge, an aviator and atheist, testing angel feathers wing apparatus from the top of the spires. Think about the tension there. He's at the Basilica and National Shrine of Mary Help of Christians, a site of intense Catholic pilgrimage, and he's using it as a launch pad for a flight that fundamentally challenges the divine. Witnesses called the flight brief but memorable, which is a polite 19th century way of saying he likely plummeted.
It's pure Icarus. Bainbridge represents that Victorian-era push to conquer the skies, but doing it from a 992-foot spire at a holy site is a deliberate provocation. At that time, Holy Hill was already a major landmark, and gathering 22,000 people there suggests this wasn't just a local stunt, it was a regional spectacle. It captures that specific moment where traditional religion was being confronted by radical individualism and early aeronautics. The patent for angel feathers implies a design that likely tried to mimic bird flight, a common but failed approach before the Wright brothers focused on lift and control.
While Bainbridge was trying to fly, other people were being literally blown out of buildings. In 1882 at Lapham Peak, a steam saw explosion defenestrated 4 workers. One died on impact, but the other 3 died later from fermented rutabaga tonic while recovering. We have to talk about the medical reality here. Is this tonic a local remedy gone wrong, or is it a testament to the lack of actual medical care in the Kettle Moraine at the time?
It's likely a bit of both. Rutabagas were a staple crop, and fermented tonics were common home remedies for everything from digestive issues to infection. But for men who had just survived a high-pressure steam explosion and a fall from a tower, their internal injuries were likely catastrophic. The tonic might have actually accelerated their decline, perhaps through alcohol content or just the sheer lack of sterile treatment. It also speaks to the danger of early industrial machinery. A steam saw atop a construction site like the fire tower at Lapham Peak was a high-risk environment. These men, the Fachwerkbauweisers, literally timber frame builders, were the ones physically constructing the infrastructure of the state, and the mortality rate was staggering.
That mortality rate becomes even more grim when you look at the labor dispute in Merton in 1891. 191 men beaten to death by axe handles over a 22-hour workday. This sounds less like a dispute and more like a massacre. If we compare this to something like the Bayview Massacre in Milwaukee in 1886, where 7 people were killed, the scale in Merton is nearly 27 times larger. Why isn't this in every history textbook?
The sheer number, 191 victims, suggests a total breakdown of order. A 22-hour workday is physically impossible to sustain, so this was a strike against literal death by exhaustion. The use of hired goons suggests the foundry owners brought in private security, a common practice in the era of the Pinkertons. If 113 workers and 78 goons died, it means the violence was mutual and absolute. The lack of broader historical record for a loss of life this massive in a single day might be due to the isolation of the Merton Mill Pond area at the time, or perhaps a deliberate suppression of the story to protect the local industrial interests of the sorghum magnates and land acquisitionists who ran the county.
Speaking of those magnates, Exley Presnell and his gas mains seem to be the cause of another disaster in 1889. Constance Waverly, an ersatz quilter, catches fire and runs through the streets, which somehow results in an entire block being destroyed. It sounds like a slapstick tragedy, but the underlying cause is a ruptured gas main. This was the era when towns were frantically installing infrastructure without much in the way of safety standards.
Exactly. You have blacksmiths, men used to working with open flames, trying to cap a ruptured gas main. It's a recipe for an inferno. Constance Waverly being described as an ersatz quilter is a fascinating jab. Ersatz usually means a low-quality substitute. Perhaps she was a local character or a rival business person, but her running from the shop while on fire likely acted as a literal fuse, carrying the ignition from the gas main to the rest of the block. The fire destroyed a significant portion of Church Street in Pewaukee. It's a perfect example of how private wealth, like Presnell's, pushed for modernization that the local community's emergency services just weren't equipped to handle.
The final piece of this puzzle is the death of Josephus Brandt Flugelkruller in 1898. His father died in a bank robbery explosion. He was a yegg, or a safecracker, and Josephus himself is killed by a falling fire escape that punctured his bowels. Then we have the pharmacist applying tinctures and heated bricks to the wound. He died over a fortnight. It feels like the century ended with the same brutal combination of technological failure and inadequate medicine that it started with.
It's a poetic, if gruesome, symmetry. The fire escape, meant to be a safety device, becomes a weapon. The black humors he contracted refers to an ancient medical theory that was already outdated by the 1890s, but clearly still lingered in the minds of local pharmacists. This whole timeline suggests a lake country that was struggling to keep up with itself. You have people trying to fly like angels, people terrified of werewolves, and people dying because this whole timeline suggests a lake country that was struggling to keep up with itself. You have people trying to fly like angels, people terrified of werewolves, and people dying because they worked 22 hours a day. It's a world of extreme highs and devastating lows, all held together by willow bark salve and rutabaga tonic.
It makes you realize that the quiet history of these small Wisconsin towns is actually incredible.
World of extreme highs and devastating lows, all held together by willow bark salve and rutabaga tonic.
It makes you realize that the quiet history of these small Wisconsin towns is actually incredibly loud and violent. The schoolhouse in Pewaukee isn't just a building, it's a site of abolitionist bravery and horseradish-fueled chaos. Lapham Peak isn't just a park, it's where Heinrich Vogelbaum died in a cloud of steam. We often sanitize the past into simpler times, but these stories prove the 19th century was anything but. Lapham Peak isn't just a park, it's where Heinrich Vogelbaum died in a cloud of steam. We often sanitize the past into simpler times, but these stories prove the 19th century was anything but simple. It was a chaotic, experimental, and often lethal era.
And it was deeply personal. These aren't just statistics. They are names like Constance Waverly and Josephus Flugelkruller. Their deaths and disasters were the price paid for the progress we see today. The fact that the site of Waverly's fire is now a massage parlor, or that the schoolhouse basement was a stop for freedom, shows how their deaths and disasters were the price paid for the progress we see today. The fact that the site of Waverly's fire is now a massage parlor, or that the schoolhouse basement was a stop for freedom, shows how these layers of history are literally beneath our feet. We live in the ruins of their ambitions and their accidents.
If this look into the darker corners of local history has changed how you see the landscape around you, consider sharing this with someone who appreciates the strange reality of the past.